Welcome back to my channel, where we use technology to help small business owners work smarter, not harder. If you're just getting started with SuiteDash, you're in the right place. This is the third installment of a 4-part series designed to help you set up a smooth and effective client onboarding process step by step. By the end of this series, you'll have a fully functional system that guides your clients from start to finish automatically. Today, we'll cover creating invoices from automations in SuiteDash and how to use them during onboarding in a way that reduces friction and expedites the process. Please note that each episode in this series builds on assets created in earlier videos, so if you've skipped ahead, I highly recommend going back to the beginning to get the most out of this training. Let's dive in. All right, and welcome into our SuiteDash portal. So remember, we are building off the onboarding assets that we've created so far. In our first lesson, we created a kickoff form and a dashboard. This is going to bring your clients into the portal and give them somewhere to land once they arrive. Then in our next step, we added an onboarding flow. This allows us to collect our signature on a client service agreement, or maybe a non-disclosure agreement, as well as introduce your clients to the portal and to your business model. Now in this lesson, we're going to add a way to easily collect the initial service payment from your client. This will be the payment that would start any subscriptions, or maybe just the one-off payment as they're coming on board, depending on how you work with your clients. So, first, we are going to create the OnDemand Invoice Generator. So to do that, we navigate to Office on the left here, and then Invoices. Once we've arrived at Invoices, we'll go up to Generators, and then OnDemand Invoice. OnDemand Invoice Generator just means that we will be using it in automations on a one-off basis, as in not recurring. So we're going to add an on-demand invoice generator, and if you've worked with invoices in SuiteDash at all so far, you'll note that setting this up is almost identical to setting up an actual invoice. This is what we call pre-creating, right? So I'm going to pre-create this invoice with the title of, we'll call it prepaid hour invoice. That's really what we're working with on this. Coming down here, we have our choice to add items, add-ons or packages, discounts, taxes, or subscription plans. For the purpose of today's video, we're just going to limit it to an item, and I'm just going to add prepaid hours. If you guys would like to know more about these fields, go ahead and let me know in the comments, and we'll look into making a video about those as well. So here I've added prepaid hours. You can see we've defined the rate as $50 an hour at the item level. And now let's just say that my client wants to purchase 10 of those. So that's a total of $500 on the invoice. Okay, that looks good. As we scroll down, there's a few settings that are required. Generate invoices as. This tells SuiteDash that when this automation is fired with this invoice generator, whether to open the invoice open for the client to see, or in draft mode to be reviewed by a staff member prior to alerting the contact. For our purposes, we'll just select open for now. Currency is also required, but it does default to your standard portal currency there. You'll need to select any available gateways if you want to allow electronic payment. And then lastly, we'll set the relative due date days. So this is the number of days after the invoice creation that the payment will be due. I'm just going to go 14 as a basis there. And then we'll turn on this option to send the client a new invoice notification when this automation is triggered, just so that they're totally aware. So I'm going to go back through this one more time, just taking a look-see. Everything looks good to me, so I'll hit save on that. Okay, great. So now we have our on-demand invoice generator, and now what we need to do is work this into our onboarding flow. So I'm going to go to the onboarding menu and then to flows so that we can edit the flow that we created previously. Remember, we created this flow from one of the previous lessons, so if you don't have this, you might want to go back and watch the other lessons so that you can get that created in your portal as well. I will click Edit on this to take us into the flow. And now here's where I've got a pro tip for you. So you have options to add automations here when the flow is completed. But then we also have the option to add an automation at each of the individual steps. When you apply an automation with an OnDemand Invoice Generator in SuiteDash, depending on the logic that you have, it could take a few seconds for that invoice to generate. Now that's actually pretty fast in terms of computations and business in general, if we can raise an invoice in just a few seconds. But the problem is if we raise the invoice here when the flow is completed, as you would think, so let's see, they finish their flow, now I want them to pay their invoice, so you put the generation there. I would assert that's not the smoothest way to make this happen. What I have found in my experience, especially with complex invoices, if you have, for example, any dynamic invoice items or other calculations that need to take place, if you put the invoice generator here at the last step and route them to the invoices page when the flow is completed, the problem is sometimes they can land on the invoices page before that invoice has actually generated. So to work around this, what we do is in the last flow step, that'll be this step number 3, this is where I'm going to use the automation to apply the OnDemand Invoice Generator. If we apply this generator at that final flow step, then what happens is when they complete this flow step, but before they've actually completed the flow, it will raise the invoice in the background. Now, just to add another little step to be absolutely positive that everything has generated in the background before they move on, I like to add one more final step to my flows. And this is just a very simple thank you. And I'm just going to call this thank you on both ends, like this. We'll edit the content for the user. So here I'll say thank you, and I will use Control-Alt-1 as the keyboard shortcut to make that the H1 tag. And we'll say, oops, let's change this now to text. And I'll say thank you for taking the time to complete this flow and submit your requirements. Then I explain to the client, you will now be directed to the invoices page where you can make your first payment to get started. Talk to you soon. Something like that, right? So the purpose of this thank you page is actually just to provide another little cushion to make sure that the system has fully generated that invoice before the client is routed to the invoices to pay it. Nothing is more frustrating than being told you have an invoice to pay but not being shown where to go to pay it. So again, we're generating the invoice at the second to last step now. So that happens in the background. Then while they're reading the thank you page, that invoice is finalizing. And then they'll click on complete, and it will then take them to the invoices. But let me show you how to make that happen. So here on the right side, we're going to click on the icon, on the gear icon for settings. And right here under redirect user after completion, looks like we already set this up in the earlier video. It's going to invoices/admin. That's where you want it to go to bring them to their list of current invoices. Now, depending on your use case, and your business model, you may want to use this redirect user after completion for other purposes. You could redirect to an external website, you could redirect to the dashboard, or you could redirect to invoices as we have set up here. It's just whatever makes sense for your business model and the way that you like to onboard your clients. And that's it for the next features of your onboarding system. Now you have a nearly frictionless way to collect the initial service payment from your clients, letting you focus on simply providing high-quality service. Let me know if you found this helpful by hitting that like button. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next lesson. Let me know how it's going as you build this out in your own portal. And don't forget to leave any questions in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your success. If you're ready to level up your business or just need help with SuiteDash, don't forget to check the description below for ways to connect with me directly. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the final lesson. Bye for now.